We're recording, we're live. Lisa, are you good?
Yep.
All right, so Lisa Blankenship is our timekeeper today.
Actually, I made Eric our timekeeper.
Eric Lovelace is our timekeeper today. And he will be the one to let us know 15 seconds and then 5 seconds and then time. They have 1 minute for intro, 1 minute to answer questions. There are 30-second rebuttals, and then closing remarks is a minute as well. So we're trying to keep it to an hour and a half. I said that there originally were 4 questions. However, I think we should be able to fit 5 questions in. And the way that it's going to operate is we're going to start with the beginning letter of the last name, A to Z, goes first in the intro, and then we'll start with Z and then go to A for answering questions, and then snake back and forth. So with that, I would like to start by saying there are some people who aren't able to join us, and we want to be fair to all the candidates. Unfortunately, Shelby Duplessis is unable to join us today. Benjamin Graff, Jason Lundgren, Jim Pederson, and Daniel Wood are also other candidates that aren't able to join us. But this is EZAZ.org. My name is Jeff Caldwell. I am the Secretary and Volunteer Coordinator for the organization. We are nonpartisan, so we don't have a stance on this race. We just want to present information to the voters and the public. And I greatly appreciate Ylenia Aguilar joining us. She's going to lead us off, followed by Alexandra Arboleda. I'm so sorry about that.
Got it.
Lisa Bullington, Alan Dulaney, Cory Mishkin, Amanda Monize, Donovan Neese, Karen Peters, and Barbara Seago. So with that being said, Ms. Aguilar, will you please kick us off?
Sure. Good afternoon, and thank you, Jeff and EZAZ.org for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here. So in 2016, I voted for the first time ever, and for myself. I'm formally undocumented. You guys are actually in the Osborne School District where I serve as a school board member, so welcome. And in my professional role, I work with a renewable water technology company that produces water from sunlight and air, and we deploy the technology to tribal communities such as the Navajo Nation, Apache White Mountain, the colonias, which are the unincorporated areas along the U.S.-Mexico border that lack water infrastructure. And through that job, I've learned a lot about what is currently happening throughout our state and our rural communities that are impacted by climate change. And that through that experience, I've been able to also understand what happens, what's currently happening because of aridification. Thank you very much. That's me. You better react, say it in Spanish.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, I'm Alexandra Arboleda, and thank you all for coming out today and for caring about our water issues. They're very important. We're facing some unprecedented challenges on the Colorado River. So I'm running for re-election to the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board of Directors. I was elected in 2016, so I've been on the board for 6 years. And I'm also a water resources attorney, so I've spent a couple of decades working on water issues. And on the board, I serve in leadership capacity, so I was elected to be secretary of the board. And I'm also chair of the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District Committee and commissioner on the Arizona Water Banking Authority. So I'll just say I have a lot of experience that I can bring to the table as we face these challenges of shortages on the Colorado River. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. My name is Lisa Bullington, and I am a real estate attorney. I've worked in areas with water law when we're working on new projects. I think I have a great skill set in terms of being able to negotiate and collaborate with other people and solve problems. I've lived in Arizona for 50 years. I love Arizona, love our state. I've got 5 children, and I'm just excited about this opportunity I know there are big challenges for our state with the water shortage, and I think there's some good solutions, and we need good people on this board that care about Arizona and want to do the right thing. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Alan Dulaney, and I'm also running for the Board of Directors for the CAWCD. Why? Because the Colorado River system has reached a tipping point. We are already in a Tier 1 declared shortage. We'll be in a Tier 2A shortage come January 1st. In 2024, I think a Tier 3 shortage may well be likely. So we've got serious issues in front of us that really require expertise on the board. Trained as a hydrogeologist, I received my master's at NAU, a little school up the hill. I served 12 years as the Water Policy Administrator for the City of Peoria. And before that, 9 years at the Department of Water Resources. So I have the experience, the expertise, and then expertise counts. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cory Mishkin. I'm the only Cory on your ballot. I was born and raised here, grew up, we had a cattle feedlot, cotton farm. Family's been involved in development in the 70s and 80s here in Greater Phoenix. Been involved in the grassroots of the Republican Party as a district chair, been a PC for a long time, a state committeeman for over a decade, and had an opportunity to serve in multiple campaigns. People have asked me where I'd like to get involved, and at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is water. If we don't have water, we don't have good sound water policy, none of it else matters. Wanted to get involved so that we make sure that we're not just looking at the current problem, but that we're looking at the next 50 years, that we're making sure that we're looking forward into the future to plan for tomorrow, not just today. I think we also need to have people on the board who have their own businesses, run their own businesses, understand that that's your money, not the government's money, and that's why I am running and excited to serve. Thank you.
My name is Amanda Monize, and I am a native Arizonan. For the last 10 years, I've been working as a proud conservative in education. And I work in education because I care deeply about protecting the future of Arizona. And this translates directly into protecting our most precious resource, which is water. Within this position, what I really want to bring to the table is putting the taxpayer above all special interests, as well as protecting our Arizona, putting Arizona's first solutions. The time to negotiate with other states is past, and we need to find something in-house in order to solve this problem, because it is a major crisis that we have on the water from Colorado River. So I'm running just to serve, just to be a part of a civil servant, to be a part of representing you as the individual and not put anybody else above what's best in the interest of Arizona. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donovan Neese. Happy to be here. So you guys got some tough decisions this coming election with all of these great folks here as options. I run an irrigation district, so I work with farmers to deliver water and power to them. It's a great job, and I love being able to work with regular people. But I feel like that qualifies me well to represent you all on the CAP. One of the largest users of water in Arizona is agriculture. And so we need to continue to work cooperatively with them to make sure that we can sustain growth into the future. And so I've got a civil engineering degree, and I have a business degree, and I feel like when we look at the lifeblood of Arizona, it's all based in water, and that's where our economic growth comes from. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is this on? Yes, it is. I'm going to hold it right there. Good afternoon. I'm Karen Peters, and I also am running for a position on the board of the Central Arizona Water Conservation District. And I am running because, as you've heard, we're in a very important moment in our state. The water crisis on the Colorado River is at, as Alan said, a tipping point. We are on the precipice of some big decisions. And I have been in the world of water in Arizona for over 30 years. I've been practicing as a water lawyer for many years. I've represented clients who were getting permits and all kinds of good things. And so I am experienced. I am ready to contribute to the solutions that we need to find to this situation. Thank you very much. Look forward to talking some more.
Hi, I'm Barbara Seago, and I'm running for the CAP Water Board. I'm an electrical engineer, but I've been doing software engineering for many, many years now. I got involved after the 2020 election. I thought I needed to start stepping up and doing things, and someone came and said at one of our meetings I was at that we needed people to step up. So I decided, well, if I don't, who's going to? So here I am. My main goal in this running for this office is that we're being taxed. This board is allowed to tax us, and I feel that there's not enough solid taxpayer representation where they're not backed by these special interest groups, as Monize said. And so I want to make sure that our tax dollars are being spent on what they should be being spent and not for special interest groups. So that's my whole reason for being on there. I have no agenda, and just want to represent you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you folks so much for joining us today. Barbara, I'm sorry about mispronouncing your last name. I'm sorry about that. So we're going to kick this off with our first question. Barbara, this is going to start with you, and then we're going to come back down to Ylenia, I'm sorry about that. And the first question, this is going to be a little bit of an intro to what we are facing. The candidates today did not get the questions prior to coming. So the first question we have is, the federal government is owed $2 billion for the construction of the Central Arizona project. We have paid off about half, so we still have about $1 billion left to go. The CAWCD tax is for the Central Arizona Water Conservation District, which is the entity that governs the Central Arizona project. The intention of the tax is to repay the federal government for the construction of the canals. CAWCD has the ability to levy a property tax. The maximum rates are set at 10 cents and 4 cents per $100 assessed property value. Currently, both rates are set at the maximum possible level. In your opinion, is this justified? Do you support the legislature increasing the tax rates? Please explain. Barbara, we'll start with you.
I would say no, I don't believe it's justified. I believe some of the money that's being spent is being used to subsidize municipalities and developers, and I don't think that's what the tax was intended for. And I have a problem with when we get taxed on something, they say it's for one thing and then they use it for something else. That drives me crazy. So I am totally against that, and I am against them raising the taxes as well.
Thanks so much for the question. So we live in the valley, and it has developed as a result of federal reclamation projects. You're familiar with the Salt River Project that was built by the Bureau of Reclamation and repaid by the landowners in the Salt River Project area. The Central Arizona Project is exactly the same. It is a federal reclamation project, and we, the landowners that benefit from it, are responsible for repaying the government for the construction costs. That's what the tax is for. I support using the tax for that purpose. I do not support increasing the tax, but I do believe it needs to be used very judiciously and with maximum care for the residents and taxpayers in our 3-county district. Important to understand that the taxpayers are the same people who are paying for their water via their water utilities, and so they are paying twice. So it's important to keep that in mind.
Nobody likes paying taxes. I'm right up there with you. I'm going to represent you all as a taxpayer myself, obviously. We all do that. It is important, though, that the CAP does continue to make those payments. It's a little bit more than my house, I'll tell you what. $1 billion is a pretty big number, so that's a big loan. But we've got to continue to do that. It's the only pipe, it's the only connection that we have to get our surface water to our cities and our fields and everywhere that the CAP goes. So it's incredibly important that we maintain that. And so we have to continue to do that. Could we be a little bit leaner with what we do? Sure, I'm sure that we could. And I'll be working to force in that type of lean government. But the reality is that we have to make those payments, and we will continue to do so. And so, not in support of more taxes, but we do need to maintain the obligations CAP has. Thank you.
The main purpose of this district and the board is financial oversight. That is the reason why this board was created. So it's important to understand that when we elect people to this position, that they are overseeing the appropriations of these fundings correctly, and not making sure that other entities are benefiting from that. In terms of property taxes being levied against that is part of our repayment, and I agree, we need to make sure we pay the federal government before we think about moving forward with any other projects. But also, we need to make sure that this funding isn't being used towards subsidizing the costs of municipalities, to use additional funding to do things like develop that may not be in the best interest of the citizens of their city, as well as that the funding being generated is going to this repayment plan, that we are making sure to repay that off and not spending it on frivolous things that may not be directly benefiting that financial obligation.
Sharing in the mics. I think first and foremost, it starts with the basis that it is our money, right? It's our money as taxpayers that we give to the government, not the government's money that they take from us. And when you start with that basis and you understand that, then you can move forward in making sure that that money is spent judiciously and wisely. But the job of the CAP is to pay back the federal government for the canal, but it's also to deliver that water in as cost-effective a manner as possible. Maintain the system. Our state legislature just extended the 4-cent tax through 2035. That was a bipartisan agreement that our entire legislature agreed on. I think there were only 2 or 3 people who didn't vote for that. So it's important to remember this has been a very high-functioning, well-oiled machine that's worked very well. The average homeowner only pays about $70 per household for that tax. So it's a great bang for the buck for something that delivers $100 billion economic impact.
I support the tax as it currently stands. We owe the federal government every year $55 million, and that will continue for the next 23 years, dropping off to about $9 million in 2045, which is the final payment. That money for the repayment obligation comes from a variety of sources: the tax, the capital charges that are paid only by cities for the amount of water that is in their allotment, not the amount of water they receive, but what they are allotted. And the administrative fees built into the delivery charges. Those pots of money exist for not just the federal repayment, but for the operation of the entire CAP system. And I think it's important to remember that going forward, financially, we're going to be looking at some serious times. Thank you.
I also support the taxes as they're set in place right now. This project, the CAP Canal, was the largest reclamation project in the history of the United States. It's so amazing that our state has it here, and our obligation to pay it back is there. There's a sunset provision, as Cory mentioned, in 2035. And so at that time, people at the CAP board will go down, meet with legislators, and we'll make the best decision as to whether the tax should end or if they should renew it. I just think it's really important. As our water supply, the amount of it diminishes, and the CAP they get paid back by the amount of water they're serving. As the water shortage diminishes, they're going to get less money. So I know this tax is very important and an obligation that has to happen. Thank you.
Well, thank you for this question. I think we are an elected board in large part because of our taxing authority. No taxation without representation. We might be an appointed board if we didn't have this taxing authority. So it is one of the most important responsibilities that we have is to set our tax rates and determine how that money is spent. Our taxes account for about 20% of our revenue, so about 80% comes from ratepayers paying for the water that they use. On the property tax bill, it accounts for about 1.1% of each property taxpayer's bill. So it's relatively small, but what the CAP delivers is enormous. As Cory said, it's $100 billion to our economy, about 1.6 million jobs. So I believe that using our tax dollars, we need transparency, accountability, but it's very important that we have sufficient resources to make sure that we deliver secure, affordable water supplies.
Yes, so my colleagues have answered, and I also support tax and the repayment. We know that this beautiful civil engineering marvel, which is our CAP system, is a result of, and this is why we are, as Arizona, the junior rights holder. This was a negotiation between the states, and this was an agreement that we took in order to pass the legislation to get the $4 billion to construct CAP system. So we, as good stewards of our money and as taxpayers, are responsible and need to pay it back. And I think this is something that is extremely important that we do. And I believe that, I'm in alignment with most of the comments that were made by my colleagues, but definitely in support of the tax.
Thank you very much. So next question. It has been stated already that we are currently in a Tier 1 water shortage, which requires Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico to cut back water use. Recently, the federal government ordered an additional 20% water reduction to Arizona from the Colorado River. It is important to notate that the CAWCD cannot implement policy. So how can CAP best encourage the municipalities to conserve water, and what is the best way to encourage conservation of water use by the residents of Arizona? Ylenia?
Yes, thank you for that question. So CAP has currently and is already working with cities and municipalities. Most cities right now already have a drought contingency plan, and the way that they have been supporting, and we can continue to support conservation, is through education. And they have been working together on ensuring that there is the education component and pushing for conservation. So cities such as Scottsdale, like they're already using a program called toilet, I think it's like, it's not toilet to tap, but it's like, that is the whole like logic behind it. And there are other conservation efforts that are happening in the city of Peoria and other cities that are really like doing the work in ensuring that conservation is at the forefront of their future plans and their drought contingency plan. But that's how the CAP can work with cities and municipalities, is through support in education and conservation efforts.
So again, thank you for the great question about conservation. This is another thing that's very important. It's in the name of our board. So what can we do? The Arizona Groundwater Code in 1980 established mandatory conservation measures for municipalities, agriculture, industrial users. And so the cities generally have to meet those conservation measures, and so they have enacted different ordinances to require conservation. Some of them do tiered water pricing, some of them have rebates, and that kind of thing is really important. But what can CAP do? We have established a conservation program, and we're working with the cities now on how to facilitate conservation. What we're hearing is that they need help with messaging and education and getting the word out about conservation. So I am made that motion in our May meeting, and I'm very much supportive of encouraging conservation.
I agree that the CAP board needs to work with cities to be innovative, to find ways to conserve water. I know Phoenix has done a lot with the drought pipeline they're building so that water from the Salt and Verde can go up to North Phoenix, because there are areas there that really rely on CAP water, and as the water diminishes, that's going to be really important. So I mean, Phoenix is doing a great job, Karen, working to be innovative. Also, this San Diego Airport built a cistern last year so that they could collect water runoff on the tarmac, and they're using that water to wash rental cars. So I just think the board, with all their resources, I know people on the board have traveled around the world, they need to continue to help cities to be innovative, because this problem affects everyone, and everyone has to work together to figure it out. And I think the key is innovation and really working together. Thank you.
So the cities all have a drought response plan mandated in Arizona statutes. And those plans were probably all activated once a 10% reduction was seen in the major supply from the Central Arizona Project Canal. I know Peoria's was, because I helped write it. The way that the board can help cities push forward with conservation is to take a leading role in educating the citizens on conservation and what we can do as individuals to help with this crisis that we're going to be in. But that said, I'm going to point out that conservation alone will not get us through a massive cut that is going to be coming.
I don't think people understand that next year our agriculture community is going to be cut 100% from their water allocation from the Colorado River in Central Arizona. This isn't about how do we have a conversation with our cities on how they can save more water or conserve more. There's innovative strategies. I think the city of Peoria does a great job in recycling their wastewater. Almost 100% of their water gets reused or put into recharge. Cities like Scottsdale have people who come to your house now and help you figure out how to lower your water bill and where you're wasting. We can encourage other cities to do that. We have the technology, we have the ability to do this and to innovate our way out of this out of this challenge. We've really done a good job in Arizona over the last 70 years. In the last 30 years, we put 3 trillion gallons of water underground for a day like this to be prepared so that we can use our groundwater savings account. But this isn't about what we tell people what they can't do, it's how we tell people what they can do better. It's not about telling the consumer not to do stuff, it's about showing them a better way.
I think an important piece of this question is reminding people that the CAP board does not create policy, and we do not enforce those things upon people, but we follow the statutes that are written within our Arizona state laws, which other cities are also a part of. What we do though is to help inform the citizens and help cities, right? They're asking for how do they educate the consumer and the citizen. Part of what we need to do is that education really disposes fear. And for some time, we haven't been educating people properly on what is actually happening. I grew up in Arizona, and I never really, we're in a drought. I never knew it because we weren't educated properly on it. And I think that's been a big failure of the current board, past boards, or people just around the state, because we need to make sure that people understand we are in a major drought. And the rate at which you purchase water is not the true market value. And that is something that is important and needs to be reflected, because what you are purchasing water for is not what it really costs, and that is costing us the amount of water in our reservoirs.
Another great question, and these guys have done a great job of answering the question. I mean, you know, we live in a desert. We know we live in a desert. As everybody said, I mean, we've done a great job of regulating our water and making sure that we manage it well so that we will have it tomorrow and the next day. That's why we created the Department of Water Resources, so that we could take the areas where we're getting overusage and manage that, so that we're using our surface water rates well, and we're using our groundwater as well as we can, that doesn't overpump the aquifers. And that's incredibly important. our job as board members at CAP is going to be making sure that CAP fulfills all their contractual obligations with the cities and with the farmers that still have a little bit of agriculture water coming their way. And so our job will be to set rates and make sure that those contracts are fulfilled. And so that's going to be very important, and that's going to create conservation in and of itself.
Thank you for the question, and conservation certainly is very important. I do want to give everybody the recognition that they deserve, though, because in Arizona today, we're using the same amount of water that we had about 30 or 40 years ago, despite having grown immensely in population. And that's because residents all over Arizona are taking this very seriously. So we can help them do more via education. As the board, it's important to amplify the conservation programs that the cities and towns have and help them to implement them, certainly. Another thing that the board can do is encourage and help pay for some pilot projects. And one of the things that's so important is piloting innovative agricultural practices, innovative outdoor watering practices, because most water in Arizona is used outside.
For this one, I believe that the current board is subsidizing municipalities for the cost of their water, and possibly also developers getting water for cheaper. I believe this is hiding the true cost of the water, and when you take those subsidies away and people in the cities have to pay the true cost, they will naturally conserve. They will naturally stop spending as much. Look at the gas prices. Do you go, traveling as far because the gas prices are so high? No, you start slowing down, how much you spend on that. The same would happen with water, which would be a natural way to get people to conserve. And we also should do similar things to what Karen was saying about helping our farmers find out better ways to get water to their crops.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for those answers. So our third question, state law dictates that one must recuse him or herself when a conflict of interest may be present. Can you please provide examples or an example if you are elected for if that would be an instance for you to recuse yourself? Barbara, we'll start with you.
If I'm elected, I don't think I have anything that would cause me to recuse myself. I don't have any ties to anything that, I don't work with water every day. I'm a software engineer. I live in a city though. I live in Gilbert, Arizona. So I guess if there was some issue with Gilbert, I might have to recuse myself. But otherwise, I don't really have anything that I can think of.
So state law does require one to recuse oneself if you have a personal financial interest in the decision that you're voting on. And so I don't think that would come up very often for any of us that we personally benefit from a decision. However, if it were, of course, we each should follow the law. I do work for the city of Phoenix, one of the largest contractors of CAP water, and I pay taxes on my home just like each of us does. So, I do not have any other clients that have interests in real estate development or any other use of water besides getting the water to you at your tap. So I would follow the law. If I am personally benefiting, of course, I would recuse myself.
I agree with Karen. If you have a personal benefit from a decision you make as an official, that would be a clear conflict of interest. But I think above and beyond that, you're really asking an ethical question. Is there some question, is there something that I would be voting on as a member of the CAP board that might be interpreted as a personal benefit to me or potentially to my place of employment? And so, those would be each of those decisions would be evaluated uniquely, because if you're voting on something that's a global criteria for everyone, then that's a little bit different than a specific benefit to the city of Phoenix or something like that. So each of those would have to be evaluated. So I can commit to you that I'm going to make ethical decisions all the way along the way, and unless there's a question to it, then I will have that reviewed. Thank you.
I think that this is important because I think a lot of failure in our government institutions is conflicts of interest. And for a long time, it's either been neglected or ignored. And personally, I have no conflicts of interest that I know of. I work for a school district. Other than that, I don't see how they would benefit from better water rights. However, though, thinking about negotiating contracts or following different statutes, right? If we're negotiating an alternative energy source to help with augmenting water, we need to make sure that if you have that stake in a company, you need to recuse yourself from those types of discussions. Or if you have a stake in another company that may benefit from different types of water rates, it's important that if you're within those industries that recusing yourself is fundamental, because we've seen time and time again how people in positions of power and control have abused their positions because they have stakes in, or their friends benefit from different decisions that are made at that level.
Good news is I don't have any conflicts that I can think of, and I know that the CAP has a wonderful staff that will help people navigate that if they did. I'm just a Yahoo real estate agent who helps people buy and sell their houses. So I don't have any of that. Obviously, ethics is at the paramount of integrity and of our government, and without it, we have issues. The good news for this board is that they set rates for the entire system. They set the rate of what water costs to deliver it. That's about 2/3 of their budget, I think, is water rates. So any vote that any of these people would be taking, including myself, is something that impacts everybody evenly and not individually. So happy to say I have no conflicts here. I don't own any stock in the Colorado River other than as a citizen of Arizona.
I retired in 2019, about 3 years ago, so I no longer have a connection to my former employer, City of Peoria. So I have no conflict of interest, although I do maintain the viewpoint of the municipalities about the importance of water. I potentially could have a conflict of interest that might make me recuse myself, in that I was president of the Arizona Hydrological Society from 2007 to 2012. And since that time, I'm still writing columns for the newsletter once a month. However, it's entirely voluntary. There's no money involved. So other than the fact that I express my opinion through our AHS newsletter, that's about it.
I also agree with my colleagues that I think on a case-by-case basis, I work as a real estate lawyer. If there was a situation where I thought there was a conflict, I would carefully consider it and talk to staff and make a determination. I worked on a case a couple years ago with a client where they needed, they were building a new project in Mesa and they needed water. So we went to the city of Mesa and asked for X amount of water, and the city came back and agreed to give us half. So we went to the client and said, okay, we got to figure out how to still do your project but with half the water, and we figured it out. So I think it's really a case-by-case decision, and just being an ethical person and making good decisions and absolutely honoring the privilege of being on the board. I would do that every day. Thank you.
Well, I agree with Lisa and the others here that ethical government is incredibly important, and it's very important that we operate in an ethical way. One of the advantages of working as a water resources attorney is I know a lot about the issues and I can help come up with creative solutions and ideas, but I also represent people who use water. So sometimes this comes up, and we do have a great legal staff, our chief counsel we can always consult with. But I don't represent anybody who has a subcontract for CAP water, so I don't have any direct conflict. But I believe it's important not just to be following the letter of the law, but also look at the perception. And we want to be perceived as a board that operates in an ethical manner. So I think super important question.
Yes, great question. So I have been serving the families of the Osborne School District for the past 6 years and have been a good steward of their money, our money, and ensuring that I'm leading with integrity and ethically. And in my professional role, our technology, if you buy it in pairs, produces enough water for drinking and cooking. So we're not going to augment the Colorado River anytime soon. But if needed, I would definitely recuse myself, but our technology does not produce enough water to make a difference in the Colorado River like we produce enough water for just drinking. And that's what our technology does, is create access to potable water for rural communities who don't have drinking water. So definitely would recuse myself.
Thank you guys so much for that. The fourth question that we have, as the state's largest power consumer, do you feel that the use of this much energy by CAB is justified? And what is or are your solutions for sustainable energy use by CAB? Ylenia?
Well, currently the water needs to be pushed and it has to be pushed up. So it has to happen somehow. So currently it is the way that we do it unless we come up with other solutions. But for now, that's the way it's going to be happening. So I am comfortable. We are the largest consumers of energy in the state of Arizona. That is the reality. But unless we have an alternative, then that is where we're at right now. What are the possible solutions, or what are the alternates that could happen? Well, we could. I actually don't know what possible solutions are, but I am comfortable with us being currently the largest users of energy, because we need to push the water to deliver it to cities, municipalities, and agriculture. Otherwise, we're not going to deliver our water safely and efficiently to our communities that need it, and that's us.
So it takes a lot of energy to push 1.6 million acre feet uphill 3,000 feet and 336 miles from Lake Havasu, where we take the Colorado River off into the canal, and then it ends south of Tucson. So that's why we're the largest user of electricity in the state. But we used to rely on a small amount of hydropower, but mostly the Navajo generating station. And that closed in 2019. So our board had an opportunity to diversify our energy portfolio and decided that we wanted to not get any more than 20% of our energy from one source. And I think that is a really important strategy, because the energy markets change quite a bit and rapidly, and we've been able to keep our energy costs affordable using that strategy.
I absolutely think that it's justifiable to use the power to bring the water, like Alexandra said, up 3,000 feet. But it's amazing. I love reading about it and seeing all the brilliant people that have worked on the CAP canal. And I've read that they are using energy at non-peak hours. They put extra water in Lake Pleasant so that during some times of the year, there's water there and they don't have to bring as much water uphill. And I just think it's a day-by-day decision on where they're getting the energy from, and they're trying to make good decisions as using energy that's not as expensive, not at peak hours. So I'm impressed of the intelligent people that are making these great decisions. They need to move the water, they need to spend money on energy, but they're trying to do their best to be strategic and not spending as much. Thank you.
Yes. The use of power currently to move that water uphill is definitely justified. It's a long, long way to Tucson. And, we get a lot of power from a variety of sources. One of the major sources is Hoover Dam. There are 4 schedules that are administered by the Arizona Power Authority, and the CAP takes up all of Schedule B. The problem is going to be if, let's hope this doesn't happen, but if Glen Canyon shuts down its hydroelectric generation, that will cause the water to cease flowing from Lake Powell to Lake Mead, and eventually Hoover Dam will be unable to generate power. So we're looking at difficulties in the future where we're going to get electricity and how we're going to get it to where it's needed. Thank you.
Let's remember this is the only river that flows uphill. I mean, that's the first thing to remember here. Water's heavy, and if you look nationally, about 20% of energy is consumed just moving water through municipal systems to your door. It takes energy. I don't think this is a bad use of energy. Last time I checked, we all need water. We all want water. So I'm good with that. I think when you look at what CAP is doing, they've diversified their energy holdings. They buy a lot on the futures market. This summer, when California had rolling blackouts, they were able to make millions of dollars by not pumping water because they have Lake Pleasant and selling that water to California, selling that power to California at a profit. The people who are working at CAP are very smart, very intelligent. They're watching your nickels and dimes and making sure that they're taking care of them. And we're innovative. That's why we use Lake Pleasant. The other thing that people don't realize is when that water goes uphill, when it's coming downhill, they capture that and recreate energy. So it's a very efficient system. But yeah, it's the largest consumer of energy in the state.
I agree that we use the energy efficiently and it's necessary, right? We have, I think, 14 pumping stations in order to get that water to where it needs to go, and it needs to go all over, right? 80% of our state gets this water. Additionally, as mentioned by some of the other candidates here, is that we have done really well with efficiently diversifying our portfolio of how we get energy, but also using whatever surplus we have to sell to California, right? Which we know we have to have an upper hand, and that's our one that we have over California. But in doing this, we have to be a little bit more creative too going forward, because as the water levels go down, that is changing our position along where we get our energy from, mainly off of Hoover Dam, but also making sure that we have opportunities to grow within the state. Now, on the board, you can't make decisions about, building something like a nuclear plant, but that might be something that we need to help influence or find information about to get better energy, because Palo Verde is getting really close to decommissioning, and we need to make sure we have another additional energy source to make sure we have all the energy we need to move this water along.
Thanks. Yes. Using power is an incredible responsibility, and CAP has done a great job of, again, like diversifying their portfolio of power options. Part of my regular job is modifying and amending and creating contracts for purchasing of power. And so this drought that we're in has not only deepened the energy crisis that we have going on at the same time. And gas prices continue to rise, and it's going to put more stress on the system. And Glen Canyon is going to stop producing power altogether if the water goes down any further. So it's all a pretty big crisis, and it's huge. And so I hope to help CAP manage their power portfolio well and adjust contracts as needed. So thank you.
Water, as Alexandra said, is very heavy. I think it was Alexandra. It is very heavy, and it takes a lot of energy to move it. In fact, your water provider that gets water to you is probably the largest energy user in its jurisdiction as well. So this power is absolutely justified. It has to be used to get the water where it needs to go. I applaud CAWCD for pursuing diversification in its power supply. When the Navajo generating station was shut down, it did, of course, reduce the amount of pollution going into the air in that part of the world, because that was a coal-fired plant, but it put the CAWCD in a situation where it needs to go to the markets for power, which is a very volatile place to go. CAWCD needs to innovate, use its resources, and potentially try and generate some of its own power.
Yes, I agree that the use of the energy by CAP is justified. I mean, Phoenix wouldn't be what it is today without the water that we have through there. So And I also agree that it's good to diversify where you're getting your energy. Make sure you're getting energy at, the lowest costs to keep our taxes low and benefit the taxpayers. So yes, I agree with pretty much what everybody said.
Wonderful. So our fifth and final question. This one is going. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you answered, Barbara.
No, I'm done.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So our fifth and final question is we're going to put it in your guys' court. This is going to allow for more people to see a diversification within the candidates. So I want you guys to ask one other candidate one question. A candidate may be asked more than one question by multiple candidates. A question may not be asked during an answer if a candidate has already asked a question. So you do have the ability to ask a question during your answer if you haven't asked one already. And so with that, you get 1 minute, just like we've done already, but you get a 30-second rebuttal if your name is mentioned, but only to defend yourself or your position. Like, for instance, a candidate cannot just say another candidate's name and that person doesn't have the ability to rebut unless it's an attack or a position question. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. We're going to start with Barbara. And I want to keep it civil, but I think you guys should be able to ask each other one question, and I will keep tabs on who has asked the question. And we'll start with Barbara.
Can I pass because I get half a question?
Yes, that's fine.
I don't have a question. I have
That's
to
fine.
think about it.
Karen, you get to go next.
Oh, fine. Wow. Barbara, I'm with you, but I'm gonna give it a try. Okay. We've gotten some of these questions in our questionnaires that we get from various organizations, and so I could just repeat one of those, and I don't know who to direct it to. Maybe Alan. Alan, what's the right balance between the use of property taxes and water rates?
Oh, okay, well, yeah, thanks. Okay, property taxes, as has been pointed out in one of our questions, that rate's fixed. It's been there, pegged at its maximum for well over a decade. Really, the only thing that's going to vary in the future is water rates. CAP charges based on the cost of delivery per unit of water. And the more units you deliver, the lower the cost to the ultimate consumer. Well, if we've got fewer units to deliver, that means the cost is going to go up a lot. So it's those delivery charges that I really worry about, the water rates, more than the taxes. I think the real concern in the future has got to be watching the water rates. Thank you.
Now, is he going to ask a question?
So Donovan, it's your turn to ask a question.
Oh, boy.
My turn now. I gotta pick somebody to pick on now, huh? Important part of this job, I think, as everybody's already said, is community engagement. I try to do as much of that as I can. I'm part of the faculty for the Water Management Certificate Program. And so I think that needs to continue on even after election so that you guys know what's going on with your water as we move forward. So I'd like to ask, I'll pass it all the way down. I'll ask Ylenia, what are your plans for community engagement?
Yeah, so as a native Spanish speaker, and given that 30% of the population is Latino, and we have certainly English learners like myself, we need to engage not only with all Arizonans who are recipients of CAP water through education campaigns, as I mentioned before, about what we actually do, because We need to educate everyone about the role of this board, which is very important and critical to the future of Arizona, but also in all of the languages, because we are not just Spanish speakers, we serve other communities that don't speak Spanish. There are Asian communities and other communities that also need to be communicated with. And I would do that just like I do in my school board role. We create language access as one of the barriers for communities to understand and be engaged. So that is one of the things that I would focus on through a campaign strategy similar to Smokey the Bear, which I still remember. I just gave it myself.
All right, Amanda, it's your turn to ask a question.
Some of the things that's come up because we've had other events where we have spoken at is climate change is a big one that comes up as a concern from some people, but also how it should be addressed. A statement by somebody I'd like them to clarify in relation to climate change was that we would need to rework the economy in order to combat climate change. So I'd like to ask Ms. Peters if she could clarify what she means by reworking the economy.
So climate change is one of the principal reasons that we are in the crisis we are today. Because the temperature continues to increase, snowpack is evaporating before it gets down to the rivers, and so it's very measurable and demonstrable that less water is getting to us because it is hotter. So what do we need to do? We need to look at how we travel. We need to look at how we procure food. We need to look at a lot of things, but it's not about reworking the economy per se. It's about us collectively working to solve those problems. So when the Navajo generating station did shut down, that was a big step in the right direction in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. That's the kind of thing that needs to continue to happen. I fully support the Palo Verde nuclear generating station getting continued because that is something that does not emit carbon, and that's a very beneficial and huge part of our power supply.
All right, Cory, your turn.
I'll give a softball to everybody. I think this is one that I'd like to hear everybody answer, and I've made this commitment out on the campaign trail, but would everybody here commit today that if they're elected that they will still show up, not necessarily at the same frenetic pace that we have in election season, but that you'll still go out into the community, show up, answer your constituents' questions, and engage with them? I know I've made that promise, and I'd love to hear everybody else make that promise that they'll show up on a monthly basis to different meetings and still be there for everyone.
All right, that is a simple yes or no question. I think we can get by with everyone saying yes or no. We'll start with Ylenia.
Can it be more than a yes?
Well, we do have some time. We have 34 minutes, so we'll give you 30 seconds.
Yeah, so it's not just showing up to the meetings when you're elected, it's doing the work. It's looking at preparing, looking at the material, looking at your agenda. It's a lot of work, and you have to do the work before you show up. So not only will I show up, which is what I've been doing for the past 6 years, and what I'm doing now, but I will continue to do the work and engage the community and show up for the community and value their input. I've been working across the aisle in another nonpartisan role, which is the school district, and ensuring that I'm doing what's right for all of my community.
Yes. I think it's very important. That's one of the most important things our board does, is to engage with the community directly and our stakeholders, our customers. We won't be able to find creative solutions unless we're listening to each other. It's so important that we're listening to the cities, that we're listening to agriculture, that we're listening to developers, we're listening to the taxpayers, the voters, and engaging with our community so that we can really understand how these shortages are impacting people and come up with good solutions.
I would also say yes and echo Alexandra's answer. We've got a water shortage on our hand. It's a critical time right now for the state of Arizona, and we have all these stakeholders with disparate interests, and everyone's important. So I think it's so important for the board to go out in the community and meet with the Indian tribes, meet with the irrigation districts, meet with the cities, developers, and really listen to their needs, because the board, working collaboratively, has to make the best decisions, but keeping everybody's important interests in mind.
Emphatically, yes. I'm retired. I have all the time in the world to go out and educate people, and I love talking about water. I love writing about water, and at AHS I put together technical symposia to discuss water issues. So yes, I will definitely be out there.
Am I supposed to answer my own question as well?
Yes. You said it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've made that commitment. I'm excited to get out and meet more constituents. I think we need to get in front of people. I think there's a lot of really great human capital in this county and in the state, and we need to go out, meet them where they are, let them ask the hard questions. If we don't have those questions answered right away, we need to get those answers to them. And without engaging the public, how can we expect them to know what conservation is and how to be better stewards of the limited resources we have in water?
One of the greatest things I've learned running for this position is getting to meet everybody and being a part of different communities and getting to speak to lots of different people. And one of the largest things I learned is that many people didn't know that this position even existed, and that majorly concerns me. So one of my biggest goals about being on this board is making sure everybody knows about this position, and that we can get more people to the board meetings, participating in the conversations that we have on the board, because we need input from everybody. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, so I'm gonna find you, I'm gonna bring the water to you, just like CAP delivers it to you.
You know, I'm really here to use my experiences in water to date to serve you guys. And I can't do that well if I don't know what your concerns are. And so it's fully my intent to continue to engage with the rest of the water folks and water professionals that I work with every day, and with all of you all, so that I know what the taxpayers are saying. Thank you.
Yes.
Softball.
Yeah.
I do work in the water world. I interact with water professionals every single day, but this campaign, this experience of running for the CAWCD board has been so exciting and interesting because of the questions that I hear from you guys. People call me, people send me emails and ask me questions. Yesterday I was on the phone for 20 minutes with a guy with his questions, and I loved it. I could talk about water all day long. So I'm really enjoying the opportunity to do that, and I would very much love to continue.
And of course, the answer is yes. And yeah, one of the things with this campaign, I'm not a politician, but it has been a lot of fun getting out there and meeting people and talking to people. So yeah, I think I would definitely want to get out there. And yes, like Amanda says, people didn't know this position existed. I didn't even know it existed. And so it would be nice for when you go to meetings that people know what you're talking about right away instead of having to explain everything. So yes. And by the way, I figured out a question if I can have my question later.
Yes, I did not cross your name off. So we'll let you actually ask the question since you were the first one to go. So you can go now.
Okay. And this one is for Alexandra. So I've heard that there's been subsidies out of our tax dollars for the CAP to municipalities and developers, and I was wondering what the justification is for that.
So yes, I think setting our rates is one of the most difficult and challenging things we do. And in the past, a large portion of our revenue went to agriculture because they couldn't pay the same amount as everybody else for their water in Central Arizona. And then now, as Donovan said, this year they're getting their, this is gonna be hard for me to answer in 1 minute. Supplies cut by 65% this year and 100% next year. So that's going away. And then at the same time, we saw an increase because of the reduction in the amount of water that's coming through the canal. The cost of water went up by 60% in the last 2 years. So the last couple of years, we've had to grapple with, do we use some of our revenues to stabilize rates as to give the city some time to be able to adapt their rate structures to this increasing cost of water. I'll stop there.
That was
I
great.
gave you a little extra time because that's a big question.
Yeah, that's very important, and you did very well. Thank you very much. So the next person that can ask a question.
Okay, so is it okay if I ask a question of Alex? Yes?
I believe, yeah.
Okay, that's within the
fourth
rules.
sole board member.
Oh, it's rough being an incumbent, isn't it? Okay, so most people don't know it, but this board is also the board of directors for the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District, or CAGRID. And one of the big things about CAGRID is that it must replenish the use of groundwater within the active management area. The replenishment obligation is one that is, I think, a major problem in that replenishment used to be largely dependent on CAP excess water, which has clearly disappeared. So, as the author of the next operating plan, how do you propose to address the diminishing sources of water for groundwater replenishment and to be used by CAGRID?
In 1 minute.
Well, that
1 minute.
I'll give her my minute.
That might be even harder to answer in 1 minute. But I understand what you're getting at, and that is going to be one of the biggest challenges long term, is how do we acquire new water supplies to replenish. The groundwater replenishment district enables development to use groundwater, but if it's replenished. And currently we have stored replenished a lot of water. We have long-term storage credits for the next 25 years. We have we entered into an agreement with the Gila River Indian community for water supplies that we can use for replenishment. So I think for the next 25 years, we're in pretty good shape for replenishment. But longer term, it's going to be a challenge. And just as I think it's going to be more and more challenging as water resources become more scarce to figure out how we are going to grow. And I have all kinds of ideas and solutions, but I don't think I have time for that. So
Thank you so much. Lisa, it's your turn to ask a question.
Okay. Cory.
You'll want to use the mic because people online won't be able to hear you. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Cory, what do you think about what the federal government has done so far in terms of the water shortages? And what would you do to kind of fight for Arizona as we kind of go to the next tier levels?
Shockingly, the federal government's been asleep at the wheel. They had the Department of Interior and Bureau of Reclamation had an opportunity to truly be a force and be forceful in saying that we needed to save water in the system. And yet again, they've decided to punt. And there's only so many times people can bluff, and they've left it incumbent upon the states. I think out of the 7 states in the Colorado Basin, 6 of us are ready to negotiate, and California is unwilling to do anything. So I'm excited to use this as a soapbox to call out the hypocrisy of California. The fact that they expect us to take 21% cut and they do nothing, and all the other basin states do it. That they do nothing to account for evaporation in the system, and the northern basin states, the upper basin states do that. So whoever is on this board needs to use this as a soapbox to take the fight to California and arm our congressional delegation so that they can fight for our rights and the rights of the rest of the Colorado Basin.
All right, Alexandra?
Now you get asked.
I get to ask a question.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Ylenia, Mexico's part of the Colorado Basin.
All right, I'm going to pick on Donovan over there. Donovan and I are both involved with the Irrigation Electrical Districts Association and the Arizona Power Authority. And so my question for you is, can you talk a little bit about the impacts of shortage on agriculture, and what role do you think ag can play in addressing Colorado River crisis?
That's a great question. Just like everybody else, I do love talking about water, and there's a lot of irrigation districts that are just closing their doors, and some of our ag land is going to be going back to desert. That's a huge problem. You know, when I see the cornfields when I drive by down the highway, you know, I like to see that as our food and fiber independence, and we need to continue to maintain that. I see it kind of like on par with Department of Defense, in my opinion. So I think it's important that we continue to maintain our ability to have food and fiber independence. As those cuts go into place, though, agriculture is going to get hit really hard. And CAP's already done some programs to help agriculture conserve water, and there are going to be, I got 5 seconds left. There's going to be great opportunities, I think, for agriculture to partner with municipalities to, am I losing power? Oh, I'm sorry. There's going to be great opportunities, I think, for agriculture to partner with other water users to create new water, well, not new water, but water to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Ylenia, your turn to ask a question.
I want to be like Cory when I grow up, so I'd like to ask a question to all of the candidates, and I will ask it and I'll answer it. So what do you see, or what do you anticipate, like what type of innovation or technology projects do you have in mind when you're elected? And for me, my focus is agriculture, so I think that Arizona can lead in agriculture through like an innovation technology hub, which includes agriculture. Like we can create that circular economy. CAP has already done a great job at piloting NDRIP, which is a technology device that was born out of Israel that reduces water waste during drip irrigation. So bringing more companies, more concepts, creating jobs, partnering up with community colleges and other institutions to educate our Arizonans and train them and create the jobs and support our agricultural workers. We know that not only Arizona, but our country depends on our leafy lettuces, and if prices go up, we're all going to be impacted. So supporting agriculture is important and critical, and that innovation, circular economy is my priority.
Well, I love this question too, because I think technology really gives me hope, and we're facing these very serious challenges, but technology can help us get there. I think there's some, well, water reuse I think is going to be a very important technology to continue to, we need to be using 100% of our municipal water supplies. Some of the cities are very proactive in this, but I think we can do more in reusing our supplies for irrigating grass, that kind of thing. I'd also like to see new technologies to help the consumer have on their phone an app that tells them from their smart meter how much water is being used in their yard. And so we can all be better water users and just make it easier for us.
Thank you. I'm intrigued by the concept of desalination, and I know everybody's heard about it, and the idea that, okay, maybe we build a big plant in Mexico, and the issue is, though, do we put $1 billion there and trust that things are going to be okay, you know, with putting that much of a resource there? So I know there's a concept of desalination with brackish water in rivers and aquifers, and I think that sounds like that could be a wonderful opportunity. So I'm hoping that that's something that people spend a lot more time on. Thank you.
I agree about desalination. It's an excellent technique. Israel has shown that it works just fine, but there's no point building another CAP to import ocean water when Buckeye, for instance, sits on a huge volume of brackish water that would be 10% of the cost of desalinating ocean water. Also, direct potable reuse is in the menu, and DEQ has already set up the program and written the rules. It should be in effect by the beginning of the next year. Thank you.
remember, we actually already have the technology. I've met with farmers, the Martories out on the west side, who are the largest melon farmers in the world. They've cut their water consumption by 60%, switching to drip. The medium and short-term solution here is working with our agriculture partners. You gotta remember, that's a $23-24 billion industry in Arizona. I want food independence. We need to support these people. But this is where we're going to get the biggest bang for the buck in water savings in the system. So how do we help our farmers? How do we work with them so that they can get the systems they need so they can be successful?
I think whatever we decide to do, it needs to be immediate because the situation is a little bit more extreme than we really understand. And so whatever we put forward needs to be multiple solutions at once, at one time, including NDRIP for our farmers because agriculture is extremely important. If we want to talk about increasing temperatures, the best thing is fields of green and not concrete, right? So we want to make sure we do that, as well as our brackish water is an untapped resource that we need to make sure we are infiltrating, and the reuse of our water at any possible turn needs to be done as well. But everything needs to be thrown up into the air, done right now because we need it today. We needed it yesterday.
Well, I think we all have hope for the future, right? There's going to be something better. There's going to be new materials. There's going to be some genius in his garage come up with something awesome, right? But the reality is that we need to take things that are already existing and use them right now. And like in my irrigation district right now, we're taking existing technologies and applying them in different ways so that we can automate things and reduce our waste and get higher efficiency, and that opportunity is everywhere. Thank you.
So similarly, I think that innovation, technology is the solution that's going to get us to where we need to be. I'm hopeful and I'm excited about the enormous revolution that is possible in agriculture because I absolutely agree that we need to have food and fiber independence in our country and in our state. So that is absolutely essential. The CAP runs this system and needs to do it as affordably and efficiently as possible. And so looking at how we run the system and looking at technology that can make that more efficient is also important.
I think just like you would diversify your stock portfolio, we would need to diversify the things we do to improve our water availability. So there's so many things like desalinization they talked about, the drips for the farmers. I've heard about water pipelines and rain harvesting. All these things could be used in various areas. I mean, some would work better in some areas than others, and so we kind of need to use them all. We need to combine them all together and use what we can where we can. You know, that's my thought.
Perfect timing. We have 10 minutes left. It's time for closing remarks. Since we started with Ylenia for opening remarks, we're going to start with Barbara for closing remarks. And you folks get a minute apiece. Please let us know what differentiates you from the other candidates and why we should vote for you. Barbara, we'll start with you. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Barbara Seago, and I think I have a technical degree, and so I can understand the issues that are going on with the water, even though I'm not a hydrology expert. I think I have the ability to understand and make decisions for you. And I also, as I said, I'm not being backed by any special interest group, so I think I can be unbiased in my decisions so that I will make best decisions for the taxpayers. And so vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you again. I am very concerned that we need the leadership that understands the challenges before us. And I absolutely deal with this challenge every single day. What are we going to do to ensure our water security going forward? The CAP board has a very important role. I have a lot of experience in this area. I know the players, no on-the-job training for me. I am ready to contribute to the solutions that we need. So I would ask for your vote and thank you very much for being here today.
Wonderful. That was Karen Peters. Donovan Neese.
Thank you. I look forward to representing you all on the CAP board. As I've already stated, I've got over 20 years worth of experience in the water industry, and I look forward to working with the folks that I already know in the water industry to help create CAP and maintain its water solutions for everyone. I want to continue to provide leadership in the water industry and use my experience to help you guys. And that's my goal. And so I look forward to instituting some efficiencies and being a good steward of your tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Donovan. Amanda Monize.
Yes, in Arizona, I think I've heard something that has been repeated since I was a child, which is in Arizona, we do things differently. And that's sometimes spoken in disdain or in reverence. And I believe it to be a very important statement, because if we don't do things differently, we're doomed down a path where we are right now. And so although I do not discredit the experience that people hold, but a lot of people on this board have a lot of experience, but we're still in a situation where we are not actually satisfying our needs in the state of Arizona to see a bright future. And so when I was talking with some of the people on the board just last week, they kept saying, well, we thought it was enough, we thought it was enough, we thought it was enough. Well, these are people with experience that haven't got us to where we need to be for an actual future where we can preserve the state of Arizona for years to come, and that concerns me. So I hope that I can have your vote, because I would love to support and be a representative of you and your tax dollars. My name is Amanda Monize. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Cory Mishkin.
Yeah, so I'm Cory Mishkin, the only Cory on your ballot. Makes it easy to remember. But I may take a little contrarian view here. We have water challenges in Arizona, but I want to be very clear. We're not running out of water. We have very good water management abilities in this state. We've done it for a long time. We use the same amount of water today as we did in 1957, and every single year since 1980, we've used less water than the year before. Arizona leads the nation in water conservation. I often joke that if politicians didn't have something to scare you about, then how would they get you to vote for them? But the reality is, we have the technology, we have the ability to meet the challenges. It's not going to be easy, but it's doable, and we do it every day in Arizona. I'm excited for that challenge. I think you need people who can talk water. I'm not a water expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm not afraid to talk about it. And I think you need people who will take the fight beyond the borders of Arizona and go pick on our big neighbor to the left, California.
Thank you, Cory. Alan Dulaney.
My name is Alan Dulaney, and I'm running for the board as well. What do I bring to the table? Well, expertise. I have a master's degree in hydrogeology from NAU and 30 plus years in experience in the water world, with the last 12 being the water policy administrator for the city of Peoria. Peoria is the only large city to have withdrawn as a member service area from the CAGRD, which was a big step forward for Peoria because we saved huge amounts of money in the increased CAGRD fees that I saw coming years ago. Also, in 2010, I led the effort to renew our designation of assured water supply and increase the supply by 1/3, which for those in the development world meant a lot. So I bring expertise, I bring success, and I respectfully request your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Lisa Bullington.
I'm Lisa Bullington, and I think I have several things to bring to the table. As a real estate lawyer that's been involved in very complicated transactions, I've learned how to negotiate, how to listen, how to learn. And in this position, there's going to be a myriad of questions that come before the board members. And there's issues of researching, working with staff, listening, and making decisions that are best for Arizona. And I'm passionate about Arizona, living here for 50 years, going to Lake Powell as a kid. I feel strongly that we need to make the right decisions, listen, and do what we can for the future of our state. Thank you. Please vote Lisa Bullington.
Thank you, Lisa. Alexandra Arboleda.
Thank you. Yes, I love Arizona. I grew up here. I grew up duck riding outside of the east side of Tucson, hiking in the mountains with my family. I love the Colorado River. I've been rafting down it. I am passionate about these topics and about making sure that our kids, our families have a secure, a reliable, affordable water supply going forward. I do have background as a water lawyer and expertise, so I think I bring that to the table as important, but even more importantly, I think that I can come up with creative solutions, and part of that is because I really value listening to all the stakeholders and understanding how these shortages impact them on the ground and understanding where they're coming from to craft creative solutions.
Thank you, Alexandra. Ylenia Aguilar.
Yes, my name is Ylenia Aguilar. I also love Arizona. I love this country. This state has given me, and this country has given me every tool to succeed. I wouldn't be sitting here. I also love the outdoors, mountain biking. My son is attending NAU, studying environmental sciences and sustainability. I love this planet. And I have been serving the families of Arizona. And if you can trust me with your children, you can trust me with your water. I don't have the years of experience that most of the people do in the water space, but I am a good listener. I'm a good leader. That's why I'm serving in my second re-election on the school board. And I do love to learn. So that is what I bring to the table. And I'm the only one who's had crisis management experience due to the pandemic. So that is something that I bring with me as we move forward into a crisis. And I've worked along across party lines to ensure that I'm serving my community. Thank you. Vote Ylenia Aguilar.
Thank you so much. And for everyone that wasn't able to attend, I hope that as an audience member, you research every candidate. The ones that were unable to join us today are Shelby Duplessis, Benjamin Graff, Jason Lundgren, Jim Pederson, and Daniel Wood. With that being said, my name is Jeff Caldwell. Thank you very much, and visit our website, ezaz.org. Have a great rest of the weekend, and happy Halloween.